For a number of years, Belgium's national team's batch of international superstars have been the envy of football federations all over the world. They've been threatening to take things to the next level for a number of years, but for some reason, they've always fallen short. When Belgium co-hosted the 2000 European Championship, the Red Devils were not ready and were bundled out in the group stage of the competition. The national team was at rock bottom, but the event of 2000 marked a turning point for Belgium. Plans were already underway, and the most important people in Belgian football set about creating a mechanism that would ensure player development in the long run. What's up everyone, welcome back to GOALSIDE, your prime source of all things football. Today, we're going to have a discussion about Belgium and how the golden generation failed when it mattered the most. We're going to take a quick look at the national team's history and how they became more than just an afterthought in European football. Are Belgium ever going to break the ceiling? Do they have the right man in charge? Are we looking at another period of transition? So many things need to be discussed today, so go ahead and subscribe to our channel and make sure to turn on the notifications. Creating something new. The traditional but rigid 4-4-2 formation was discarded in favour of a more flexible and attacking 4-3-3 lineup, which forced individual players to take more responsibility with the ball. It took time, but eventually all clubs were able to start enacting principles that would benefit the national side for years to come. The system introduced Romelu Lukaku, Eden Hazard and Kevin De Bruyne, who were between 8 and 10 years old, but were seen as players who might become stars of the future. The rest, as they say, is history. 10 years later, and after slipping to 70th in the FIFA rankings, Belgian football slowly started to find its feet, and in 2014 they reached the quarter-final of the World Cup for only the second time in their history. A couple of months later, Lukaku and De Bruyne made their debuts for the senior side. By the end of November 2015, Belgium were ranked number 1 in the world under Mark Wilmots. Wilmots' era comes to an end. The job wasn't done though, and the Red Devils were dumped out of Euro 2016 at the hands of Wales. Wilmots was sacked and replaced by Roberto Martinez. The Belgians headed into the 2018 World Cup as pre-tournament favourites, and everybody expected them to make history. And while they didn't win the competition, a third-place finish went down in history as the team's greatest ever achievement. A golden generation that's rusting. A lot of members of the national side have known each other since they were little boys, which is why it isn't surprising to see them entering tournaments as a side that have the best chemistry among their peers. So forgive us for being a little bit disappointed that Martinez's men have failed to make it count so far. It was quite a somber sight at the Allianz Arena in Munich. Italian players were celebrating yet another win, while the faces of the Belgian players wore blank expressions. They'd just been beaten 2-1 by the team that would end up winning the European Championship 3 years after going through the ignominy of not featuring at a World Cup. Thomas Vermaelen, who has been around for a long time, simply glared into the grass while Martinez stood like a statue with arms folded and brow furrowed. Belgium did have a lot of chances to put the game to bed, and we're sure that fans also thought this team deserved some sort of reward after having come so far. Euro 2020 seemed to be one final opportunity for this group of players. They'd created a bar, set it up top and threw the gauntlet. The national team had been a backwater since the 1980s, and all of a sudden it became a factory that was in the business of mass producing talented players and sending them all across the corners of the old continent. It's quite astonishing to see that a side that once boasted the likes of Vincent Kompany, Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld, Thibaut Courtois, Axel Witsel, Kevin De Bruyne and Eden Hazard in their pomp, never lifting any piece of major silverware for the country. The team's ceiling was never reaching the last 8 of a competition. Martinez broke that ceiling 3 years ago, when Belgium simply outclassed Brazil to set up a semi-final date with the eventual winners, France. That defeat might have been forgotten, but the frenetic loss to Italy can't be ignored. Most people might not agree with us, but Belgium took a major backward step after bowing out of yet another quarter-final. This is a team that threatens to become an underachieving group of talented players who somehow fall short when it matters the most. That won't be any comfort to the players, of course, as they think about the end of their own era. Euro 2016 was perhaps Belgium's biggest chance to win something, but they folded against Wales. The current crop of players is running out of time. Vermaelen is 35, Vertonghen is 34, Alderweireld is 32, and Hazard is 30 and plagued by injuries. The current golden generation is definitely the envy of the world, but the reality is they might never be able to take that final leap and win something big. Hoping for a better future. With the Qatar World Cup just around the corner, we might see a new look Belgian side. The likes of Vermaelen, Vertonghen, Witsel and even the elder Hazard might not be there. It might be that Yuri Tillemans, Yannick Carrasco and Timothy Castagne will guide the national team to a new era. In Jeremy Doku, they have found a player who can easily displace Eden Hazard from the starting 11. The youngster darts past defenders as if they weren't there. He hops a little and then accelerates and then feints and keeps on dancing with the ball sticking to his boots as if bound by glue. At the age of 19, his ceiling seems endless, and if the youngster continues to play like he has, he could become a player who makes us forget about a golden generation that simply crumbled under the weight of expectation. Stick with Martinez? Even though they crashed out of a major competition earlier than expected, it should and will not have any bearing on the future of the manager. The former Everton manager's contract runs until after Qatar 2022, and the Spaniard has also said that he will resign only when he feels he's no longer able to contribute. Belgium are set to play in the 4-team Nations League finals in Italy in October, where they will meet France in the semi-finals. If they down Didier Deschamps' men, the Red Devils will take on either Italy or Spain in the final. Winning the Nations League might not be enough, but it would at least be a great shot at redemption for a manager who's done well for the national side, even though he has very little to show for his efforts. Of course, you always think you could have done better, but every decision we took came after much care and planning and being thought out, Martinez told reporters. He's been criticised for the substitutions he made in the game against Italy and for his playing style being too rigid. One of the major themes of this year's competition is that teams can no longer get away with going for an approach where they allow an opponent to dictate the style of play. England, for instance, slowly crept back into their shell once Luke Shaw handed them the lead. Rather than taking the game by the scruff of its neck, the Three Lions sat back, which gave Italy time to settle into their rhythm. The same happened with Belgium after they'd taken a lead through Thorgan Hazard. Belgium dominated possession after that, but never created enough chances to put the game to bed. This allowed Italy to grow braver as minutes went by. You simply can't afford to let the game pass you by these days, and brevity is something that was needed on Martinez's part. With so many attacking options to go for, the Spaniard kept things way too tidy and rigid. Perhaps a more attacking approach could have worked out in Munich. Nonetheless, the current Belgian side is likely to go through a period of transition. New players will come in, and the younger ones will be given more responsibility. A changing of the guard means that mistakes will be made, but as long as the team management is able to stick to its ideals, there's no reason to think that Belgium won't win something major in the next 5 years.